Last weekend, we had an unexpected guest in the house. We never saw him, but we knew he'd been. Can anyone think who that might have been? If you'd guessed Easter Bunny, you'd be right. He'd come to our house and he left behind him a trail of clues. Each clue led to the next egg, and the next egg led to the next egg, and there was loads of these for Isaac and Esme to find until they got to the end. And at the end of the trail, what did you get?
A gigantic egg.
There was a big egg. So all the clues were a sign of something bigger which was to come. And that was that big giant egg for these guys. Don't look too close because they don't think there's anything left in that box. So the Bible is a little bit like that Easter egg hunt. Throughout it, we get signs and clues of what lies ahead. We have all these different stories which says something or signals something of something which is going to come, something which is going to happen or you're going to get at a later time. You've got the story of Noah's Ark.
Get the ark. Can I get my cross?
It's that you get the story of Noah's Ark, you get the story of Jonah and the whale, Daniel and the lion's den, and the story which Alec is going to start looking at with us soon is the story of Abraham. Now, God visited Abraham and he gave him a promise. God promised Abraham that his descendants would be more than the stars in the sky and the dust on the earth. He'd just have so many descendants that he wouldn't be able to count them. Now, this was amazing because at that time, Abraham was an old man and still hadn't had a baby. But God granted his promise, followed his promise, and gave Abraham and his wife Sarah a baby. But God also promised Abraham that all the nations of the world will be blessed through his descendants. Now, Abraham at the time probably didn't know what God had in mind, what his great plan was when he promised that to him. But when we look through the Bible and look ahead to where God was pointing in Abraham, we see that through Abraham's descendants, through Abraham's children, who had more children and more children, came Jesus. So Jesus was from Abraham's line, one of Abraham's great grandchildren. And Jesus was that sign, that big prize, that big Easter egg, which Abraham, the God had promised, and Abraham is pointing us towards. And that great blessing to all the nations was that Jesus Christ was coming into this world, that he, like we celebrated last weekend, that he died on the cross, that he lived that perfect life before his death, and that he conquered death and rose again. And that is what we celebrated last weekend, and that's what we need to remember now. And it's important that when we look through the Bible at some of the older stories, or any story in the Bible, but that we think not only what is it teaching us of God's greatness and there at that time, but what it's taught us or what it was looking forward to God's great rescue plan for us now. That through Jesus Christ we can know that our sins are forgiven.